Welcome, everyone. It is great to see everyone for our second event in the Shattering Glass Ceiling speaking series. My name is Katie Whitfley, Coordinator of Student Events and Activities at the San Joaquin County Office of Education. I'm very excited for our wonderful and powerful guest speaker tonight, Judge Lee. We hope that you enjoyed tonight and that tonight can be interactive. Please feel free to submit any questions to moderator Chelsea. You can chat her directly. And also feel free, she might ask you if you want to ask the question. Judge Lee really wants tonight to be interactive so that you get the most out of it. So now it is my honor to introduce Judge Lee. Jayne Chong-Soon Lee was appointed judge by Governor Newsom in December 2019 and is currently the supervising civil judge at the Superior Court of California, San Joaquin County. She graduated from Yale University and UCLA School of Law. She has taught at Stanford Law School, published law review articles currently used in the first year law school classes, and was an adjacent professor at Golden Gate University School of Law. She's the author of a Matthew Bender multi-volume treatise, as well as a contributor to various CEB treatises. She's a frequent lecturer for CEB, PLI, the California State Bar, and various law schools. She has served on curriculum committees for the Center of Judicial Education and Research and executive committees of the California State Bar. Currently, she serves as the chair of Probate and Mental Health Advisory Committee of the Judicial Council. Judge Lee is passionate about helping the community and all that she does, and we are really excited to have her here tonight. So if I can have all of you join me in a virtual round of applause to introduce Judge Lee. Muted, Judge Lee.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. So I wanted to make this really interactive. I also wanted to make this a conversation between, you and I, and by you, I mean all of you, but pretend we're friends and we're just sitting across a table and we're talking. So I wanted to share a couple of things about myself. So the first thing is I was born twice. So what do I mean by that? First as an infant and then as a teenager when I became an American citizen. So I wasn't born in this country. I am an immigrant and I first came as a teen. When I was naturalized, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States, which ironically is the same oath that I took as a judge. So I'm a child of immigrants. I'm an immigrant. My parents and I came to this country to escape an oppressive regime and to enjoy liberty, opportunity, and equality. And my husband is also the child and grandchild of immigrants who fled Nazi Germany to find refuge in this country. So I am so grateful to serve the country that's welcomed me and that's given me so many opportunities. And just like all the other immigrants, I am passionate about giving back to America and to its people and institutions. I'm really grateful to be appointed judge in San Joaquin County to serve its people. And what is so great about this is San Joaquin County is a very special place. It's not just a place where people live and work and commute, right? It's so much more, and it represents, I think, what's called a shared dream that diverse people can work, love, play, and live together. And I think now more than ever, this really shared dream is so important to all of us. And so I'm going to share something else, and I'm going to ask you to participate with me. And, just by raising your hand, kind of like that. Okay. So I have a confession to make, which is really odd coming from a judge, right? So, but first, I want you to make a confession to me. So I want you to raise your hand if you failed at a small thing in the last year. Okay. I failed at a small thing last year. Okay. Next, I want you to raise your hand if you failed at a medium thing last year. Okay, me too, I failed at a medium thing last year. Okay, finally, I want you to raise your hand if you failed at a large thing. Like at Starbucks, this would be what's called the venti-sized failure. Okay. Me too. I've like had, okay. So that's not my confession though. My confession is this, okay? And this, I think, has been the secret to everything that I've done. So I'm a judge appointed by the governor to decide cases, and for most of my life, I've avoided failure. I ran away from it. I pretended, it didn't happen, and I ignored it when it happened. But here's the key. It wasn't until I changed my mind about failure, and that's when I really started to achieve the dreams that I wanted. And today, I want to change your mind about failure. So in the last 3 years, a lot of things have happened to me. So I was chosen as commissioner by the judges of San Joaquin County, and it has to be by unanimous vote. So you've got to get like 25 people to vote for you. Then right next to that, right after that, I was appointed judge of the Superior Court by the governor. And I've been told that my appointment was probably the fastest that anyone's ever seen, so it was 5 months from the time I submitted my application. And, when you apply, everyone tells you, well, they say it'll be years, right? It took me like 6 years. It took me like 12 years, but, you just have to be patient. So I wasn't ready when it happened. I thought it was a prank call from the governor, and I hung up. So I know, okay, I think that's a medium-sized failure. Okay. And then finally, after being a judge for about a year, I was selected by the judges to become supervising judge. And so I've been told that's kind of fast too. It's faster than it takes to become a supervisor at the 7-Eleven. So, and how did all this happen? It happened because I changed my mind about failure. And I want to share with you my insight that I think failure is what leads you to success. Okay. So when we think of failure, I think we think of it negatively, right? Failure is painful, it causes emotional anguish, it makes us crawl into bed, binge on Netflix and chocolate ice cream. So how many of you have done this, right? I've done this. I've done this a lot. Okay. So we avoid failure. We pretend it doesn't exist. We hide from it. And I think that's especially true for us women. So, how many of you have had your parents talk about how successful your siblings are or your relatives, right? Okay. I hear that all the time, right? You think they'd talk, they'd boast about me. No, there's always somebody better. But nobody talks about failure, and I think all of us think that we're the only ones who failed. And so, but those of you who've known true failure, and I have, and have bounced back from it, we've understand that failure in life is necessary for success. Okay. It hurts. Failing hurts. It hurts like a razor. It slices us to our inner core, but it's necessary. And if you look at it, the most successful people in life have failed the most times. So Reggie Jackson, right, struck out 2,600 times in his career. I think it's the most in the history of baseball, but you don't hear about the strikeouts. You hear about the home runs, all 563 of them. Michael Jordan missed more than 9,000 shots in his career, and he lost almost 300 games. He's been trusted to make the game shot like 26 times, and he's missed a lot of them. But part of that, I think, is that he took the shot, right? He took the shot, and that's why he succeeded. So there are so many stories like this. I could go on all night, but I'm not going to. So you're probably asking, okay, how does all this talk of failure relate to the glass ceiling? And I'm not going to recite the statistics because you all know them, how we're hired, but women rarely reach the highest levels because of the glass ceiling. So tonight is going to be different. Even though this is all about the glass ceiling, I'm going to talk about something very different. I'm going to talk about the step before the glass ceiling, and that's called the sticky floor. So I'm convinced that that's what stops us first, even before the glass ceiling. And I owe this insight to my friend Holly Fuji. So Holly Fuji is now a judge, and she has done so many things before me. And I met her when she became the first Asian Pacific Islander attorney to become president of the state bar of California. And that's sort of a big thing because all the attorneys have to vote for you. And so she was first on the board. And when they asked for nominations, she kind of looked around. She looked at, the 12 other people. She wanted it, but she was afraid to try. And like many of us, she's afraid of failing, right? What happens if you put your name in and they don't pick you? Or what if nobody votes for you, right? You end up like 3 votes. So then she looked around at all the other candidates and thought, oh, I'm just as bright as them. I'm just as capable as them. And she thought, why not me? Okay. And so for me, that's what I started to do. I said, you know what? I'm not the worst one. I don't have to be the best one, but I'm just not the worst one. So why not me? And so she decided to run. She was elected to be president of the state bar by the attorneys in California. And she's the one who said that was so huge in her life, that one decision to say, you know what? Why not me? I'm just going to go for it. And so again, I think it's the sticky floor that stops us first before we even reach the glass ceiling. And we stop ourselves because we don't try. So why don't we try? I think we believe that we're not good enough, that we might set ourselves up to be the targets for criticism, or finally, right, that we might fail, and it's totally understandable. And I think it's this fear of failure that keeps us on the sticky floor. So, and how many of you have seen those sticky traps that you used for mice and cockroaches? Yeah. Okay. So once you're stuck, right? It's hard to get loose. Well, that's all of us. And so here's my talk for tonight, how fear of failure keeps us on the sticky floor. And so just for tonight, you don't have to do it tomorrow. Just for tonight, I want you to do something totally radical. Okay. Embrace your failures and the possibility of failure. Why? Because you've got to take risks. Now, how many of you heard this before? Like, you have to take risks, right? We hear this all the time, but now I want to explain why taking risks and embracing the possibility of failure is what leads you to success. And I think there are 3 reasons. Okay, first, you will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You'll lose. You'll embarrass yourself. You will totally suck at something. Failure is inevitable. And let me explain. So I'm famous at my university, which is hard because it's a very big school with a very long history. And during college, like many other Asian Pacific Islander women, I was supposed to go to medical school. So I took this placement test that let me skip the basic classes. So I ended up taking neurobiology, which involved a lot of electrical experiments on mice. And I was the first person in the history of my university to electrocute myself during a neurobiology experiment, right? And my professor said, I'd done the impossible. and wanted to study me for experiments. And even now, all of my classmates kind of greet me with a buzzing sound when they see me at reunions. And it really is not funny, I have to say. But this failure was great because I was never really meant to be a doctor. And sometimes failure is life pointing you in another direction. And it's the best way to tell you that maybe you really should be doing something else. And it is a gift in disguise. Okay. So, lesson number 2, if you don't fail, you're not really trying. Right. And there's a great saying, to get something you never had, you must do something you never did. So, my first job out of law school was teaching at Stanford Law School. I taught evidence, which is something that you should never do straight out of school. Okay, you really need to practice a little bit and learn and do some trials. Well, I never did that. I was terrible. Okay, I was only one step ahead of my students. I would read up on the lesson plan the night before. And whenever a student asks, I know you're all educators, so this is a really big confession for me. So whenever a student asked me a question, I would tell them that I was going to answer it at the end of the class and then conveniently, right, run out of time, you know. And so even now, whenever I see one of my old students, like I either run away or apologize because I really was that bad. But that job gave me credentials and the background to get my next job and the jobs after that, because people think that anyone who was a law professor at a law school at 25 would know what they were doing. And between you and I, that's really not true. And so even though I was totally unprepared, I probably should not have been teaching. I'm really glad I did that now. And I think that was getting off the sticky floor. Okay. So the third lesson, and I think failure teaches you that you really cannot rely on yourself, that you have to rely on your colleagues and the larger community that you're part of. So I'm going to tell you something about judges that you're not going to ever hear from anyone else, right? So there are all these areas of the law. And then you don't really have to have a background in it. They kind of stick you there and say, okay, you're a judge. So it's sort of like if you've been in an orchestra and you've been playing the violin since birth or since 5 or whatever, and you're now the concert master, they hand you a trombone, okay? And then say, okay, you're now playing the trombone, right? Or, and then these odd sounds come out when you blow through it, and you are so bad that, you couldn't even play in a high school band, but still, you're the judge in that area. So when I started out as a judge at the court, I had a criminal misdemeanor calendar. And I've never practiced criminal law in my life, right? But I had incredible colleagues. I have an incredible court where I could call any judge and they would leave their own bench and help me. So when I had a question where I didn't know the answer, I would get up off the bench, take a short reset, and then desperately start dialing numbers to see who was available. And so I have a colleague named Tony Agbiani, and he thought we were best friends after a month because I called him so much. And I never had the heart to tell him that it was because his last name started with A, and I was just working my way down the phone list. Right. So during my first 3 months as a judge, I'm convinced that everyone thought I had a bladder problem because I would get off the bench so much, right? I'd say recess, and then get off and then start desperately calling. So what do you do when this happens? But I learned that there were so many people that I could lean on and learn from, and I grew and I kept growing. Okay. And so when they offered me the supervising judge position, I thought, okay, I'm the most junior judge at the court. I've never done this. Some of them have been here for 25 years. I still have to, I'm still calling on the phone list for advice. I'm now up to B's. So I made my way down, right? But then I asked myself the question, which is the Holly Fuji question, right? Which is, well, why not me? It's why shouldn't I do it? And so this is what I'm going to offer up to all of you. Okay? So for the next year, every time an opportunity comes up, I want you to ask yourself, why not me? Okay, you don't ask yourself, well, why me? But no, why not me? I might as well do it. Embrace opportunities. Don't be afraid of failure. Go for all the goals and secret dreams that you hold in your heart. And then a year from now, right, come back and tell me. Tell me all the wonderful things that have happened to you, all the things that you've achieved, and all the dreams that have come true. And I just can't wait to see what you're going to achieve. And I can't wait to tell you what I'm going to achieve, because something incredible is going to happen in a year, because I always ask, whenever any opportunity comes, why not me? I might as well do it. And so that's what I have to tell you. And I am so excited to be here with all of you. And that pretty much is it. Okay. And so if there are any questions, any stories you want to share, um, whatever it is, then I'm ready to answer questions. Or if you want to share your stories, that would be great. So Katie, what do we do now?
I think Chelsea just unmuted herself. I think she might
Okay.
have some questions
Okay.
For you. Thank
Okay,
you, Judge
great.
Lee. This has been great.
Yeah, if anyone wants to drop their questions in the chat, they can, or they can unmute themselves. I see some friendly faces. Lisa Bowman, I see you out there. So if anyone wants to ask their questions themselves, they can. But a couple folks sent me some messages privately. So I'll just go ahead and read a couple of those over
Sure.
here. Judge Lee, what's one thing you wish you did differently in your career?
I wish I had gotten up off the sticky floor a lot sooner. Okay, so I waited until I thought I had enough experience. I waited until I was perfect. I waited until I had published a lot. And the one question the governor asked me is, why didn't you, this is a great resume. Why didn't you apply earlier? And I thought, that's why I wanted everything to be perfect when I applied.
Understandably so. Actually, I have a question. I'll interject.
Sure. Okay.
Can you tell me how it came to be that you thought it was a prank call from the governor? Because I'm just so curious how that exchange happened. Did you really?
Oh, okay. And I almost hung up. I honestly thought it was a scam call, and that's because everyone told me it would be years, right? So I was ready. I thought, okay, I'm sure it'll happen someday. And I was already a commissioner, kind of doing a judge's job, so it didn't matter. You don't make that much more money. And so and then he always makes this call right around the holidays. So the weekend before Christmas, my husband and I went to the city, and we were at the Ferry Building, waiting for those porchetta sandwiches. It's like, I mean, they're really good. They should, and I get a phone call, and I didn't recognize the number. But then I thought, it didn't say scam. You know how usually it says scam. So I picked it up, and he said, "Hello, this is Gavin." And I thought, oh, I don't know a Gavin. Who is this? And I said, oh, hello. And I'm thinking he's going to ask, he's going to ask me for money, right? Or there's something. And he said, oh, this is Gavin Newsom. And I said, oh, hello. Because, and then he said, I wanted to congratulate you. And I thought, okay. And then he said, I'm appointing you judge. And at that point, I kind of dropped my phone, but I still had my porchetta sandwich because I knew what was important, right? And so I had my sandwich, and that's what happened. And what's so great is that they really try and make it special. So the governor reads through your file, and he, tells you, things about yourself. And it's a really, really great call. And then after that, but then they tell you to keep it a secret, right? Because until it comes out in the press release. And of course it's really hard to keep it a secret. So you call your parents and then you tell them, you swear them to secrecy, right? But they're never, they're not gonna like keep it secret. So that was the story of how I was appointed, and I wasn't expecting it, and it was great.
That's a fun story. That's really fun. You should definitely share that. If you continue to share that.
Okay. All right.
We have a question from Jayne Steinkamp. She says, which female was your greatest inspiration?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which what?
The question from Jayne Steinkamp is, which female was your greatest inspiration? Who inspired you?
You know what? It's really interesting. And I've been thinking about that. And I think I had a couple. There's always Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Who just is an icon for everyone. But it was somebody closer to home. And it's Linda Loftus, who is the presiding judge, and she's a judge here. And she told me something. She said, you know what? You can be a judge and you can still be a normal person. You can talk to people. You can be natural. She said, you can be kind. And I loved that. And I thought, oh, I could be a judge because I love how Linda is, and Linda and I once went to an event, right? And this is when she was presiding judge, and there were like the young lawyers there, and we went around and we met everyone. And then, we would ask their names and where they worked. And then when they asked Linda, where she and I worked, she said, oh, we work at the court. And I'm convinced that to this day, people think that we were probably clerks or something. So, but it's just that naturalness. And so,
Love that. We have a question from Lisa Gilmore. Lisa, would you want to ask your question yourself, or would you like me to ask it?
Sure. Hi, Jayne. Thank you so much.
sure.
I guess sometimes what has been difficult is when you do the whole why not me, and then you kind of get there and then you're kind of challenged as to, well, you don't know what you're doing and you're not. And so just kind of sometimes still feeling like an imposter.
Yes.
In my own educational experience and my own job experience. And I just wondering if you have any advice, if you've had to deal with that as well at your level, and how you kind of the politically correct way to handle that, I guess is what I'm saying, or just the
right.
professional way of handling it,
right.
as opposed to letting emotions get the best of us.
So number one, everyone feels that. So what we're planning to do for the California Judges Association is have a talk about the imposter syndrome. And some of the people that we are going to ask to speak is the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court, and Supreme Court Justices, Elena Kagan, and so part of this is you're always going to feel that way. The issue is then what do you do, right? So what do you do with it? And You do the best you can, you work hard, you do everything, and just know that you're going to be enough. And I think it doesn't ever go away because it's always there at every step. Personally, I thought, it would have gone away from me a long time ago. And so sitting there with the Chief Justice, when she talks about the imposter syndrome, because I thought, oh, when I get to be that level, then I will, I'll feel so great, right? But I think the most important thing to know is that everybody feels like that. Everybody feels like that. So one of the things that we talk about at this court is, before I go on the bench, every morning, I'm terrified to death, and then you talk to the presiding judge who says, I'm terrified too. Everyone's terrified. And that's what makes us great, because if you're not a little bit scared, then you're just going to do it by rote. You're not going to care. But it's the fact that you're a little bit nervous. It never really goes away, but you learn to deal with it, right? It's like when you're diving off that diving board, it's scary. It's always going to be scary from 50 feet. The higher up you go, actually, the scarier it gets, but you get used to it. And you also kind of, I want to say, prepare yourself and inure yourself so that, you know what, if you do a belly flop, you can go home knowing it's okay. It's really okay. It's not the end of the world, because I could have spent 2 hours talking about all the mistakes, I make and still make, okay? But I think what I've finally gotten comfortable with is the knowledge that I'm going to make mistakes and it's okay. And what's great is when you first become a judge, everyone just tells you, look, you're going to screw up, right? As long as it's not the death penalty, it's okay. You can always fix it, and so I don't know if that answers your question, but and when we do the imposter syndrome, what is it, presentation, I'll send all of you links, because it's really interesting to see and share and know that, everyone else feels like that.
Thank you very
We should
much.
take a poll. Has everybody here felt like an imposter sometimes?
Oh yeah, no, totally, absolutely.
An imposter sometimes. Show of hands or a thumbs up. Thank you.
And then Christine Stepping, would you like to be highlighted to ask your question?
Thank you. And I think you answered my question already, because you mentioned sticky floor and you mentioned you were enough, and you said, you're all are scared. But I have a daughter that wants to be the president of the United States, and what is one advice to a young girl you would give that's entering male-dominated professions? Like, can you wrap it up?
Go for it. It's great. Okay, it is great. Don't worry so much. It's going to be okay. And I guess I'm seeing young girls now who are so courageous, who are so exciting. I mean, I love working with them. Katie, you know this. I just love the young girls now because they have so much courage. They're jumping off that diving board, sometimes, into shallow water. But I don't know what to say other than go for it. And if you fall, it's great to have a mom who's going to pick you up.
Christina, tell her she has my vote.
Oh,
She's counting
yeah.
on it.
She can
Thank
come.
you.
She can come campaign here.
You just wait. Give her some time.
That's great.
Lisa Bowman had a question. Lisa, do you want to be highlighted or?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, good evening. You're such a great role model. So I wanted to switch gears a little, and I was
Sure.
thinking, in your current role, have you had the opportunities to open the door for other women and maybe Asian Pacific Islanders? And then a follow-up question is, where do you see the glass ceilings in your profession?
Huh. It's interesting. I think one, I hope I've been able to open doors. I think that wherever I've presided, I've seen firms hire more, especially Asian Pacific Islander women, and I think it's so funny. Before I thought I would be making a splash, or I would be contributing more substantively. And now I have young girls who tell me, oh, you're the first, Asian Pacific Islander woman judge I've ever seen. And I have them come into my courtroom. I have them sit in my chair. I say to them, you can do this too. And I think it's so odd, but I think I never thought being a symbolic role model would be as important. I think that people who appear in front of me, sort of get a lesson in many ways. And do I see a glass ceiling? I don't know, because I haven't hit it yet. Maybe I have, and I just haven't noticed, but I haven't hit it yet. And I think part of that is it's sort of like deciding you're going to be president, right? Go for it, because sometimes what's in our way is our not trying for it or going for it. So I'm sure I've hit something, but I just don't know what it is, and I don't anticipate it. It's just been, I love my life. I love what I'm doing, and I don't know. I think I want to say I've been really, really blessed in my life. So a lot of this is luck, but it's also luck, I think, that anyone and everyone can have. And I'm sure there are some barriers, and I just haven't hit them yet, or I haven't hit them in a way that it's stopped me. So who knows what I'm going to be doing a year from now? Maybe there'll be another call, or maybe something else really wonderful will happen.
Awesome, thank you. And then we've had a question from Sherry Coburn. Would you like to be highlighted, Sherry?
Hi, thank you so much. Just what you've shared has been so inspirational. And I've really not heard of the imposter syndrome, so I'm so sorry for my naivety. But could you please, and then is there research about that, and what is that all about? So thank you.
Okay, so I can speak a little about it. So the imposter syndrome, and I'm paraphrasing, perhaps someone else can articulate it a little more fully, is feeling that you don't really deserve, the position, that somewhere, somehow people are going to feel like, ooh, you don't really know what you're doing. So it's a little bit like the emperor has no clothes, right? And I think I will tell you, I haven't met a single woman who hasn't felt that. And no matter how high you go, we all talk about, ooh, at some point someone's going to find out that it's just a mirage, right? And there is some research about it. There's some scholarship, but I really can't speak to that. I can just speak to it in terms of my colleagues and how we feel. So part of this is, I think we are, especially women judges, we are trying to figure out how we can contribute. And we decided that maybe one of the ways we can is just to be honest about how we feel, honest about the things that we go through every day, but still manage to do everything that we need to do. And that's, I think that's what it is. So I got to sit next to the Chief Justice during when we could fly, back when we could fly. And I do have to admit, I think I pushed a couple of people out of the way so I could sit next to her. But and we had this talk, and it was so encouraging to know that she herself still felt scared every time she gave a press conference. Every time she sat on the bench at the California Supreme Court, and she said each of her colleagues always feels like that. So part of this is just sharing that, you're not alone. Everybody feels like that. And it's just a part of life. And you, as long as you're comfortable with that and still move on, perhaps that's the best lesson.
Thank you.
And actually, could I add something? Okay, so I've heard these talks before, and where people say, well, I graduated first in my law school class, and then I did summa cum laude, and then I did my, and I could do that, but I wanted to give all of you a very, very different talk to say, I am just like you. And I think, honestly, the only difference is that, one, I decided it was going to be okay if I failed. I got comfortable with possibly not succeeding. And that gave me the courage to then try for things. And I think it was the trying and applying and, doing all those things that really put me where I am right now. And I think that same thing is going to help me in the future. And all of that is going to help all of you. And, when your daughter becomes president, I can't wait to see what she does next.
Wonderful. We have Garnett Salazar has a question. Would you like to be highlighted, Garnett?
Sure. So I was wondering if what sacrifices, if any, you've had to make when you're climbing your own ladder to success.
I really don't have a personal life anymore. And I have I think what really helps is I have a wonderful family. I have a wonderful husband who understands that pretty much I spend a lot of time working. And it's funny, because I thought about that, right? I thought, ooh, is that a sacrifice? And I'm not sure it is. I'm really not sure it is. I think that I could probably be a better wife, better, family member, more loving person. But I'm letting all that go because right now I think I'm the first supervising judge in California who's an Asian Pacific Islander woman. So for that, you know, and I'm hoping that that'll open the doors for a lot of people. I'm hoping that people will look at that and think, oh, I can do that too. And I'm going to tell them, yes, you can do that too. You can, there are lots of opportunities. There are ways to move up. And I will always be there supporting all of you. Come see me. If you get discouraged, come see me. I'm on the 10th floor. When we can all open up, I'll give you a tour of the courthouse. And And then you can tell me what you've done with your life after you've said, why not me, after a year.
Where are your chairs? Oh, someone unmuted. Thank you very much for that. And then we have, I think, one more question at this point. A question from Annie Cunyal, who says, how do you find a balance between family and your career? Which I kind of just answered and saying you don't really have a balance, but maybe.
No, I have a really loving husband. I have a really loving husband who really helps me. So, you know, I think a lot of us have really loving partners. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg would never have gotten where she is without Marty Ginsburg, right? When I look at all the women judges, we have really, really wonderful partners who support us. And like right now, my husband's going to have dinner waiting for me when I come home, you know? And so I think that's what it is. And I think that's also what gives me a lot of courage, because I know what's important in my life and I will always have that.
Wonderful. And I think that was the end of our questions. So I think we're going to move on to our closing remarks, and then the contact information for Judge Lee will be available to everyone, and we'll send the recording of this event.
Sure.
Like to have it as well. With that, I will hand it over to my distinguished boss, Dr. Kathy Nichols-Washer, to close out. Thank you, Judge Lee, for your wonderful presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you to all who organized this event, and thank you to our participants for joining us this evening. Thank you so much, Judge Lee, for your inspiration and your encouragement. We have not only enjoyed hearing from you, but we've learned from you. And I know that I'm going to take some of the lessons that you've shared and apply them as best I can and say, why not me?
I know.
And let you know next year.
That would be great.
What happens. You know, you've challenged us to rethink how we feel about failure. And as women, I think that's very important, because we know that we are judged differently than men based on our mistakes and our failures. And thank you so much for emphasizing that for us and challenging us to rethink how we see ourselves and how we perceive failure, and how we can use that to help us better ourselves, not only in our professional careers, but in our personal lives as well. So thank you so much for that, Jem. We greatly appreciate that. You know, part of your comments reminded me of the character in Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, who always annoyed me as a child. I was always annoyed by Tigger, but he always bounced back. And when you were speaking about that failure and picking yourself up, just the image of Tigger popped up in my mind, that we need to be like that and just always bounce back. And like you say, it'll be okay. Everything will be okay. So thank you for that, Jem, as well. You know, I also picked up on your how relationships have helped you throughout your career. And that's something that I think we value as women in leadership, in our professions, as working women, that we know that relationships are very important. So we thank you for highlighting that in your life and stressing that as well. So we just greatly thank you for being here and sharing your story and sharing your confessions and making us feel like it's okay to fail, and we'll get back up and we're going to ask ourselves, why not me? And we'll think of you when we do. So thank you so much. I appreciate everyone for joining us. Please make sure that you tune in next time. We hope that you'll join us. We have San Joaquin County District Attorney, Tori Verber Salazar, joining us on, I wrote down the date, now I can't see it. There we go, June 16th at 5:30. So hopefully we'll see you then, as we have another wonderful speaker series. Thank you so much for being here this evening. And remember, why not us? Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. I love this, and you know, come see me in a year. Okay, bye.
hand for a moment, Judge Lee.
Okay. Oops.
We'll let people.
Okay.
Can I share something real quick, Judge Jayne?
Sure.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate you sharing such realness, and you're so amicable. It's just so refreshing. Coming from where I came from, we have this general fear of law and of judges. And I feel like, if people from where I grew up could see a judge like you, I don't think we would have that negative perception. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I feel so blessed that I get to do things like this. Thank you so much for asking me. And I really can't wait to see what all of you are going to do.
Thank you.
And thank you, Katie, for organizing all of this as always. Hi, Pam.
You're welcome.
So I think the committee's staying on at the end.
Okay, and I get to leave?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Enjoy your dinner from your husband.
That's right. Okay, bye.
Judge Lee, we appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
bye.
I wasn't sure if we were supposed to be staying on. I just felt bad. So that went well.
Yeah, we should be good now. It's just us now.
Thanks, Chelsea.
I think it would be great to get shirts that have our hashtag, and then on the other side have "Why Not Me."
I love it.
Yeah.
That's, twice. I mean, because Kathy, that's a similar